Hey everybody, Rob here. Hope you're doing well. Let's talk about dealing with unexpected expenses while you're trying to follow the baby steps. So you're in now baby step 1, baby step 2, baby step 3. Most people are start off in the beginning because once you're done baby step 3, what do you do with an unexpected expense? If it's an emergency, you use your emergency fund. No problem. But what do you do when you're in baby step 1 or 2 and you have an unexpected, let's say, car repair bill? Well, the main thing comes down to, is it an emergency or not? That's really what this comes down to. You always have to ask the question, am I in the middle of an emergency or not? Because if you're not, and this is important, if you're not in an emergency, well, then don't fix it. Right? In baby steps 1, 2, and 3, you are focused on one thing. And that one thing is the debt, especially in baby step 2, right? In baby step 1, that one thing you're focusing on is getting your starter emergency fund going. You need something between you and life. Some major thing is going to happen. There is going to be something coming soon. COVID hit. Nobody could see that coming. But could I see that something was going to come that was a big deal? Yeah, absolutely. Something's going to come that's a big deal because that's always true. It could be something that's global, like a pandemic, or it could be something very local to you. A relative dies, a furnace goes out, a car blows up, a car accident happens, a death in the family. Like there's a bunch of different things that could happen. One of them is going to happen to you soon. That's not being negative. That's just being confident that this is how the world works, right? So if you're not in an emergency, if what happened is not an emergency, you focus on the baby steps. Get that starter emergency fund done, baby step 1. Baby step 2, get all your debt paid off. It's not an emergency. You do not need a new pair of shoes because your shoes broke. That was one of my situations that happened. I got a hole in one of my shoes. It was not an emergency. I didn't need my shoes for anything major. So what did I do? I glued it shut. I'd rather be able to put more money on the debt than be able to spend $150 on a new pair of shoes. That's if you're not an emergency. If it is an emergency, then things change. If what you're dealing with is an emergency, and you can classify it in your own brain as an emergency, okay? You drive to work and your car is broken down. Now, there are borderline things, like you're driving to work and your air conditioning went out in the car. Depending on where you live, and depending on your life situation, you may classify that as an emergency or not. There's been plenty of people who call in on the Dave Ramsey show who that was not an emergency. We had our air conditioning in our car went out, and we just drove with the windows open. That's an option, right? Maybe, depending on who you are. Your home air conditioning goes out. If you live in somewhere that's crazy hot, that might not be an option to leave it unfixed, right? That's an emergency. If you're in an emergency, then you're in an emergency. Act like it. Cut everything. Cut everything. You are not doing anything extra right now. You are dealing with the emergency. Like, you shouldn't even be investing at all in baby steps 1, 2, or 3. If you're still investing when you're in an emergency, you are missing something, right? If it's really an emergency, okay, then we focus everything we've got on this, the emergency. So what does that look like? You don't put anything extra on debt. You don't put anything extra in your emergency fund. You just pile up cash to deal with this particular issue that's happened. You sell stuff to deal with this particular issue that's happened. You don't go out to eat. You cancel cable. You do whatever you can to deal with this emergency because it's an emergency. Okay? Now, that's the main point to get across, okay? The added part of that, though, is stuff like car repairs. It shouldn't be an emergency. It shouldn't be unexpected because cars break down. So it is a good idea to have in your budget some money being put aside every month, even in baby step 2, I would say. Probably not baby step 1. Baby step 1, you're just building up an emergency fund anyway. Same with baby step 3. But if you're in baby step 2, to put away a small amount of money every month until you have a sinking fund that's going towards car repair. That's a great thing to do, right? So put away, let's say $100 a month into a car repair fund, and 10 months later, you've got $1,000. And maybe you stop there. right? Because this is the thing. It really depends how much do you actually expect to spend on car repairs. If you've got a car where for the last 5 years you spend $1,000 maintaining it, well, guess what? You need $1,000 a year to maintain it, and maybe even a bit more on top of that, just in case something extra goes wrong, right? So you got to budget that in, because that's what's actually going to happen, right? So in that case, more than $100 a month would be applicable. But that's really what it comes down to, is it's not unexpected. In the same way, Christmas is not an emergency. Christmas is the same time every year, December 25th. They don't move it. So we know it's there. So, right, if you start this process mid-November, then yeah, Christmas might be an emergency. And you got to deal with it, and you got to get it done, and you got to do whatever is possible to get it done. And that also means not spending as much as you usually do, because it's an emergency, right? What's the emergency? Is it an emergency that your child get a new PS4? No, it's an emergency that your child get a gift, right? It's not an emergency they get a brand new PS4. Okay, like that kind of thinking gets involved. But bottom line is now you start looking at sinking funds. You start saying, okay, I'm going to start saving up towards this item, saving up towards this situation. And you put that in your budget regularly, and you save up for it into a sinking fund. I like to go a little bit differently and just say, okay, I'm going to save up for it, but I'm going to save up all at one go. So I'm going to focus on my car repairs for the year. I'm going to have a $1,000 car repair fund, and that's exactly what we did. And I just put it into an envelope, and now I don't have to worry about car repairs until a car repair happens. And then I've got the $1,000 set aside. And if it's more, what do you do if it's more than $1,000, Rob? You're now in an emergency situation. Well, because and if you're maybe step 2, you've been putting lots of money towards your debt every month. Well, guess what then? When the car breaks down, you now can stop that, and whatever money you were going to put onto your debt, you have that. Plus, you've got the $1,000 emergency fund, which is separate. I'm talking about just money set aside. This is my car repair fund. Okay? So I hope that helps. I hope that clears up some stuff around how to deal with unexpected expenses. If you've got any questions on that, shoot me an email, rob@WePayOffDebt.ca. I would love to help any way I can. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.